I think it's an excellent question. I think what we do differently compared to most contractors is when we go into your home and we're assessing what's going to be done with the kitchen or bathroom, basements, or in general where the project is, I'm not looking at it through simply a contractor's eyes. I'm looking at it through like a designer's eyes and the shaping it, molding it. And most contractors, when they come out and they give you a price, it's literally just, here's a guess. With us, we're trying to give you a very accurate, like, hey, this is what it's truly gonna cost based off of the conversation you and I have. And it's a lot of conversation, like how do you use a space? What do you want the space for? You know, what's wrong with it currently? What can we change? And so I'm literally, first time I step in your home, I'm looking at the space from a different perspective than most contractors are. I'm actually designing it while we're talking in my head. And so therefore, when I give you a quote and I'm trying to price it, I'm giving you a much accurate price, but it's truly gonna take to get that project done, and compare it out just winging and going, oh, it's gonna cost like this. And then you get into the job, you're like, why is it $20,000 more than my quote? Well, because that contractor, he's just guessing. I'm going in there, planning and designing it. Well, I think that comes back down to, you have two types of transactions. You have the transaction base, where people are just looking for the price, and you have the relationship base. And the relationship base, truly, if you want excellence and you want something that's going to speak to you in a space, you need to find someone who's willing to work with you on a relationship base on that project. And so, symbol of excellence is definitely, it's what to me is, does that space connect with you? And the only way to get that space to connect with you is through conversation, talking to you. And then as we're starting the project, we're shaping it, you know, we'll have it 90% planned, but the other 10% planned is just the shaping of it as we're doing the project to make sure when it's done and you walk into it, you're like, yeah, this is me, this is mine. It gets very overwhelming. It gets very stressful. I don't think people quite, when they're going into even a small bathroom project or a kitchen project or a basement project, they don't realize the amount of decisions they're gonna have to make along the way, from, you know, from paint to, you know, tile, maybe the grout, the countertops, the cabinets, the hardware, the faucets, the everything from A through Z, you know, abstract and accent wall, all the flooring. There's so many decisions to be made, and it's like, it can be, if you've never done it before or not used to it, it can be almost paralyzing, where it just adds more pressure and stress to the job. And we found that the clients who, you know, are willing to work with us more and willing to relax, it's a much smoother process than they're ever going to experience with anybody else. And so one thing we do differently to try to alleviate that paralyzing feeling you get with that is we do what's called a client experience day. We literally take our clients out and we look for every single selection of that product. I mean, for example, we had a client, we did their bathroom, and we're sitting in there trying to figure out the vanity. And it was a paralyzing moment for her. She didn't know where to go, and you could tell she started, it's like, time out. I was like, what's your favorite color? She's like, I really like the color green. I was like, all right, let's start there. So we literally designed the whole bathroom around a green vanity. That was it. And we built it off of there. And what was great was her husband called me later that night, and he goes, when they got in the car, she looked at him, she goes, we would not have been able to do this without them. I think expectations wasn't set at the beginning of it. I think it's one of those where the contractor is just not taking the initiative to communicate and talk to the client. I think at the end of the day, the communication is probably the most critical part. And we do our best to make sure we're communicating at every level, from the guy swinging the hammer to myself to anybody involved, even to our vendors, and how we communicate with the homeowner. There's a lot that goes on there. And I think a lot of times when you're not sure what's happening and you're kind of left in the dark, that's when a lot of the stress or just the unknown starts to kick in. And that's when it starts to become a nightmare, because your human nature, it's like your imagination takes over and you start thinking, are they going to come back? Are they going to finish it? What's going on with this? So we do our best to try to do almost a daily brief to the client, whoever's on the ground, like just do a check-in, like, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's going on with this. So that's why I think sometimes it turns to a nightmare, is the lack of unknown, and that's going to be resolved by communication. I think the one thing the military taught me is that never quit, never give attitude. You push through it. When you're in the military, there's sometimes you go through the grind, and you have no choice but to push yourself through that grind. And I take the same approach and also I guess another thing, even in the military, like whether it's war or it's training after war, there's the unknowns that you wasn't prepared for, but you planned for it anyways. So you think about all those variables. And so the same thing as a project. You're sitting there digging into something, you're driving into something, and you come across something, you're like, wow, I wasn't planned for this. Well, you have two choices. You can freak out and just lose your emotions, or you're like, okay, time out. We faced situations like this in the past. How do we handle it? Okay, let's take it this way. And just come up with a course of actions, and not just look at the homeowner and be like, well, what are you gonna do? No, we're gonna come with the corrective action. Like, hey, this is how, good, better, best. Here's the best way, here's the best financial way to sit there and tackle this unknown. The mission is to not just a vanishing contractor, but to make sure we're setting our clients up for success. Not giving them a fairy tale number, and then we get into the job, and then we give them the realistic number. Our goal is up the front is to give them the realistic number and realistic expectations and deliver above expectations results. And I think that comes from, just staying on task, keeping the end result in mind of delivering something that other people struggle to deliver, and how do you escalate that to a better product. Well, going back in the military, you always sit there depending on your battle buddy to pull you through the tough situations, whether it's a training out in Fort Lewis, Washington, and it's raining for a week and you're out in the field. It's the same thing with the projects. I completely understand. Before I started this, I flipped tons of homes. And so I could put myself in the homeowner's shoes when they're living through this project, and it's inconvenient, it can be uncomfortable, it's stressful, and you have to keep that mindset to them. You also have to let them understand it's like, let's not rush through the process now just because you're uncomfortable. You're going to be more upset about the regrets of, man, I wish I would have did that. I wish I would have did that. I didn't do it because it was going to take a few extra days longer. As a battle buddy, I want to make sure I'm setting you up so I can help you get through those tough times. One, I'm very active involved. Our team is very active involved. When it comes to architects and designers, I'm very selective who I use. What I've learned is a lot of designers, they don't design or build based off of the client wants. They build based off of what they feel is what's popular at the time, what's the easiest course of action to take. To me, it's not about the easiest road. It's about what's ultimately going to fit the space with the client. And so there's only a couple designers I can think of that does that. So I'm willing to work with them. That's an excellent question. So I think the perception is we're one of the most expensive guys in town. When you pull back the curtain and you actually dig in, you pull back the layers, and you discover, once we go down that road, you discover one of the most valued company that you're gonna come across. We offer probably the greatest value you're gonna get across when it comes to home remodeling or new construction. The reason for that is, a lot of contractors that, like, go back to the original question you asked me at the beginning was, what makes us differently? Well, most contractors they're throwing things at the wall, making a guess. Where I'm going into the job and I'm designing everything exactly what we're having a conversation with on our initial assessment. So when I'm giving you a quote, I'm basing it off of what it's truly going to take to accomplish that. And then, so there's that aspect. So my quotes are not a guess. They're more like 95% accurate because of what we're doing. The other 5%, in some contractors, it's even greater than that, is the reason why they're, it seems like the low price is because when they set allowances for particular materials, say cabinets, I've seen quotes come across when I've talked to clients and the other contractors give an allowance for $5,000 or even $10,000 for the cabinetry. And I can look at that going, I know darn well you're gonna be between 15 and $25,000 lower, because most people, human nature, they go straight down and they look at what the price is. Example, there was a job in Sylvania I quoted. I was like $90,000 for his kitchen. The other person, she ended up going with somebody quoted at 60. And then I ran into her later and she told me, because it ended up costing her more than what my original quote was. Because in his quote, he didn't have anything for allowance for appliances. He had a really low ball allowance for his cabinetry. He exempted moving the low bearing wall out. And she said by the time she added all that back in, it exceeded what my quote was. And I'm gonna go in there thinking, okay, when I give you a quote, this is, and you say yes, you can ask everybody on my team. I take it very personal when we go over that quote. Very personal. People that we don't want to work for are the ones, there's a couple different categories, and we're very selective, and we're getting more selective on who we wish to work with and what projects we should take on. Interested. What we do is art. And I try to, every approach we do, it's like I tell you, you can find anybody hang a kitchen cabinet. Can you find something that look like art? And that's what we strive to do. So those who don't really have appreciation for the art of it, I'm not interested. For those who just looking for the lowest price, use the cheapest materials you can get, I'm not interested. Because the problem with that is when you get the cheapest materials, a lot of people they have a hard time distinguishing between when the product fails, was it the product or was the installer? And now people don't realize is one of my jobs is not just to sit there and renovate your kitchen and your bathroom, basement, your full home, or do new construction. That's only part of it. Well, you only see part of it where they're working. The other part is building those long-lasting relationships with the cabinet suppliers, the floor suppliers, the countertop suppliers, with all those, because those relationships that we do really, truly help us be successful. They're probably the driving force. Because when you focus on the number at the bottom of the spreadsheet, they say, I'm trying to think of the best way of wording this. I could sit there and do something really cheap, and it's amazing on how many ways you can cut corners on a project, where the contractor can literally make more money along the way. My mentality is I want to sit there, whatever the best way we can do it to make it a better product. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the bottom of the number, and maybe I'm $5,000 more. Well, it could very well be is because the other contractor is leaving things out of that quote to catch you later on, because they're going to make more money in the long run. So I think it's also the quality of it, where you get to look at what they're going to do, and they're going to stand behind it. Warranties are important. Most contractors do a 1 to 2 year warranty. We offer right off the dot 5 years. And the goal is eventually push that to a lifetime warranty for our workmanship. Because if you don't skip corners, your work should last. And whenever you go cheap on anything, you often pay more in the long run. The real cost, the unpredictability, because the cost could be increased pricing of the materials because they're going to sit and wait. I know cabinets, some of the cabinet lines we're using currently, in the next week or so, they're supposed to go up 3 to 5%. The second one is you're getting out of the rotation of a schedule. You may wait 6 months, but every day we're getting calls. Every day we're signing contracts. Every day we're building our schedule up. So you may sit there active operate now, and in 6 months I could have your kitchen done. You may wait 6 months, go, okay, we're ready to go, or this is what we're gonna do. I can't touch it for a year. So it's so hard because of the scheduling possibility. So have trust and communicate with somebody and build those relationships can really help a lot with your anxiety and hesitation. And we're really big on telling people like, hey, this is probably not the best financial move. We turn jobs down all the time, but that's part of the conversation we have. They're getting a lot more than just a quote. When I come and visit a house, I treat them like they're a family member. I watch out for their best interests. And like I had the conversation, he wanted the addition because he has a large family and he wanted to be able to expand his table. And I remember looking at him, I was like, I can design this whole entire thing with no addition and solve the problem. And we did that. Saved him over $100,000. So I think with us, when we come out, it's not just, once again, we're not just looking at it going, okay, yeah, I'll give you a price in the bathroom. Like, no, well, let's design the bathroom. We can move that, move this, change that. So I'm giving you a lot of more design ideas, more financial, watching out for your finances a lot more on what financially makes the most sense. First step is it really, when you're talking about the amount of money you're going to spend on whatever the project is, it's a large investment, not just into your home, but even deeper, it's a large investment into yourself, into your family. And that's something that you shouldn't take lightly. And so you want those relationships. I think that we live in a society where we got to get as much quotes as we can. Why? Build the relationship. If someone comes in and you get the relationship, like, I trust this person, and it's all about transparency as well. So find the contractor that you can build a relationship with, because that's going to go so much farther. Because when things go bad, because there are a lot of jobs, there's going to be things, the situation in the jobs where things may go awry because we come in unforeseen conditions. Those relationships that you have can help push through it and make the product even better. I have renovated dozens of homes I lived in. I've built my own home. I have gone through the process of just the uncomfortness, like I said, when houses I flipped, I slept on the garage floor while I'm renovating my house. Fixing this house up and building this house, I had to live with the family where I built this. So I understand the tough decisions you have to make. I understand the uncomfortness that comes along with it. And it's really important that, for me to take that experience of like stressing over a color of my cabinets or the flooring or the fireplace or just the timeline where you're living with a family member and you're getting stressed out because you're just want my own space. I want my own space. I understand that, where I think a lot of contractors probably don't understand it as deeply as I do.